Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Vibing with Sleezy, the podcast. This is episode 10. We are coming live from Hendersonville, Tennessee. That is a city north of Nashville, Tennessee. I am visiting Horse Girl, a.k.a. Christine Hernandez, a former guest of Vibing with Sleazy, the podcast. And tonight, I have a special guest on the episode. We have her fiance, Mr. Jim Dalton. Some people may know him as James Dalton. They also have two pups in the house, which one is sitting right next to me. His name is Turk. He is a dachshund. He's also known as Wiener Man, and he's in his wiener blanket right now. He's sound asleep. And we have Summer on the other couch, and she's sound asleep. She's a hound. So, two great dogs. And I also want to shout out Jim for Jim has hooked me up here, so I didn't have to travel with all the equipment. He brought down some cool stuff, so we're using dynamic mics, so a little bit of a different recording format this time around. But I want to thank everybody that's listened so far and for all the support. We've reached episode 10. It's now a month and a half, and I keep saying we all the time. It's me. It's my podcast. So I've reached episode 10, but the we, I guess, is all the guests, and I want to thank all the guests that have been on the show and future guests. I have a lot of exciting people coming up. A Psychic will be on May 15th, so stay tuned for that. I think that's going to be one of the coolest episodes. So, without further ado, let's dive into our guest. Welcome, Jim. How you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing all right. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. I appreciate you being on the show. Jim he is from Illinois, but he is living in Hendersonville, Tennessee. And Jim is someone that, in my opinion, is one of the smartest people I know. And I'm not just blowing smoke up his butt. He literally is one of the smartest people. Very, very smart on technology. And something I really wanted to talk to Jim about on this podcast is, the big thing about my podcast is I want you to learn something. I want you to take something away from the show. I'm going to ask Jim some questions I might already know. I might already have asked Jim. But we're going to dive into some technology questions that might be advanced, might be basic. Jim might not even know the answer on some, but Jim will be able to definitely give us feedback and information on the technology world, in my opinion. So, Jim, pretty much we'll start off by asking you, What realm of technology do you do right now? What are you doing right now, currently?
So I will be more than happy to talk about that. I just won't tell you about who I specifically work for.
Yeah, and that's completely fine, and I completely respect that.
So kind of let me give you a little bit of background, just kind of paint a picture here. So whenever I first got into working in technology, I started off in retail. So I worked for Apple Incorporated. That was where I started, and part of that was driven from the fact that I was not solving problems in my career of choice before that. So I really didn't get to interact with people, didn't solve anything super complex. It was really just mundane and really more like a factory job. And to kind of go into that realm, I was a chemist. I worked in a lab, worked a couple jobs, and then realized it wasn't what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So whenever I came to the point of realizing, well, I'm tired of sinking time, energy into something that really wasn't going to make me happy, wasn't going to get me paid, really wasn't going to make me happy in the realm of solving problems.
I got you.
I wasn't there. So at the end of the day, whenever I kind of got that connection, I went over to work in retail, which seemed like a step back. There were several people that were like, dude, you're abandoning what you actually studied in college and you sunk so much time and energy into it. And I'm like, this isn't making me happy. I can't, continue to do something like this just because I spent a good chunk of time doing that work for, 4 years. I'm not going to do it. So I went there, did that, was a genius for like 4.5 years. And then you hit a ceiling just like you do with any job. And you essentially have to make the decision, am I going to continue to pursue this, or is there going to be something else? And clearly there was something else.
Mm-hmm.
So I went out into the world and actually, started working in small, medium business. I worked for a managed service provider. For those of you out there that may not know what an MSP is, it's basically like, hey, we may not have the funds, we may not have the resources to actually have an IT department inside of our four walls, so we go and use a shared services model.
Mm-hmm.
A bunch of people are buying the same service from this company, and they get their support. So that's really what I worked in for a couple years, in and out, and most of my expertise whenever I go into these types of environments are a lot of planning and strategy,
mm-hmm.
but it's also very cloud-centric. My expertise really does kind of live in that realm.
And when you say cloud, that's Apple products mainly, right? Is that a Apple?
No. So like endpoints, like if we were to backtrack a little bit, when we talk about a technology environment, there are some components there, right? So we have things like computers,
mm-hmm.
right? So we have the things that you actually interface with, like mobile devices, but there are the things that are abstracted from you as an individual contributor within an organization. So, if you think about your stereotypical IT department,
mm-hmm.
They have the quote-unquote server room.
Yeah.
So that room holds not just servers in some instances, but it holds things that are like switches, which are the traffic cops of everything going on the network. So whenever your computer connects to the network, whether that's through a wireless device, so it's connecting to a wireless access point, or it's connecting to something that's actually wired in, you have that Ethernet cable that goes from your computer to the wall. It eventually gets back to going into a switch, and that switch determines how to prioritize that traffic and actually send it out to a router or firewall. That router or firewall then sends it out to the greater internet, and I'm obviously skipping over like the internet service provider modem, and this is super straightforward. I am removing a bunch of different things that are like
you're
possibilities here.
I'm following.
So a lot of that stuff where you have organizations that may have those servers in-house, they may choose to have their accounting software there. They may choose to have their line of business application software there. So if you have somebody who's, let's just say, I'm trying to not violate any NDAs here. So just in general,
definitely got to protect yourself.
Generally speaking, let's say we have a small community bank that may or may not have certain applications running on these servers that talk to other servers.
The Turk Wienerman Bank.
The Turk Wienerman Bank. Yeah, let's just hypothetically call it that. Yeah. So it will actually operate inside of those four walls. So let's take, for example, what if we took that example of those sitting in those four walls, and we moved those into a data center that wasn't in the building.
Okay.
It was accessible from anywhere that the organization deemed appropriate, where they could actually, do business from the beach if they really wanted to. And for anybody who's listening to this that knows technology, may work within it, I totally know that I am just glazing over a bunch of stuff that you're just like, well, what about VPN? And stuff like that. But if you put it into a data center that doesn't exist within that organization's four walls, it gives them the capability of a few things. Like I said, you can work from anywhere. Hypothetically speaking, if the
which I think is very important now, especially in this world.
100%. Yeah. There are some relevant things to where we are here geographically. Hypothetically, what if a tornado comes through?
Exactly.
What?
That just happened recently in
Nashville. Happened March of 2020. Then what happens if somebody decides to roll up on a prominent area of the city and detonate an explosive device?
Oh, that happened also recently. Christmas time.
Yep. And then what happens if there is a pandemic where you don't have access to that network?
COVID.
Yep. And then what happens if you don't have the appropriate infrastructure to handle your entire company working remotely?
Man,
So
it's all bad news.
So
it's all bad news.
This is kind of a core example of the conversations that I have with organizations to say, you can't build a business plan on hope.
True.
You can't sit and say, well, we can hope that everything works out, because that's not a way to plan for disaster. So whenever we have these discussions, it's a lot about the degree of likelihood. And whenever you move something out into cloud infrastructure, a lot of those types of concerns just disappear.
Gotcha.
Or at least become radically minimized.
Okay.
And you end up going from, I am going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, and that's on the low end, for these servers, for the software licensing, for the patching, maintenance, all this other stuff that are associated with actually caring for that infrastructure, to, I'm going to let Microsoft, I'm going to let Amazon, I'm going to let Google take care of it. They're going to take care of the infrastructure, the underlying stuff that actually makes it work. You take care of the permissions, you take care of the availability, and whenever I say availability, what I mean is that it's not just at one data center. It's across multiple data centers.
And it's proving that these companies now are needing, they need this infrastructure to survive. Technology-wise, server-wise, and also, too, it's proving, too, that a lot of these companies, they're doing heavy investments almost. It costs a lot of money to probably keep all this going and maintaining.
It does, 100%. So you can spitball numbers all day long.
Yeah.
You
really don't truly know, probably, right?
Well, you get a good sense after working in the industry for a minute. So if you dial it back and say you want to be super lean, you don't want to spend a lot. You are willing to take on the risk of your company's integrity, reputation, financial well-being. If you're willing to sacrifice all those, you can go below 10% in IT costs based upon revenue.
Wow.
But typically the ones that care for things appropriately and maybe are driven by compliance that may not have certain things dialed in, and there are certain exceptions whenever it comes to scale. Say, for example, if a company is going from 500 people, at whatever year of existence to 2,500, 3,000 people a year later, if they're looking to scale super aggressively, that'll look different for them. The costs just rapidly increase.
Yeah.
But those types of organizations, they're going to be looking, because as they continue to grow, right, they're continuing to get more sales. They're continuing to actually increase their overall footprint in the marketplace. So those types of organizations are going to be around the 20% mark, as far as if you were to look at revenue as far as cost goes, that's what that would look like.
Yeah.
So going back to your original question, it's really balanced as far as whenever I tell people what I do, and I should have probably started with this, it's really the value that information technology functions in how it serves their organization to serve their customers. And that's a radically wide net. That's very, very general, but people don't often realize that the things they do just internally affect their internal customer experience, so their employee experience, which directly affects how those people serve their customers. So if you think about an organization that you've worked for potentially, and you just have an app that you use or a computer system or something, and you're just like, can I curse on here, by the way?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
This is as raw. You can be as uncut
Okay.
as you want.
Okay, so you say, this is absolute shit.
Yes.
This application, the system I'm using is absolute garbage.
I could tell you one right now, SmartPub Pro, something I used previously. It was complete bullshit. And that's where I learned exactly what you're saying, that companies, they love to use some kind of software. You're gonna use software when you work somewhere.
And if you think about it in the context of how you, in using that software, was reflected in how you interacted with a customer outside of the organization, how much it caused you to just be like, and we all know what that feels like. We all know that it's just like you're sitting there thinking in your own mind, I can't believe this. Why didn't this just work?
Exactly.
And so whenever it just works, there's a whole ton, and I glaze over the aspect of it just works is filled with lots of man hours and woman hours and gender hours that are not identified here in that statement. A number of application software development, planning, projects, those types of things, that investment to just make it work and make it seamless so that way you serving that customer is just absolutely seamless is worth its weight in gold. Because if you think about a quick transaction where, say, for example, you go to a store and something just works, nobody has problems, you're like, done, you're just like, wow, that was quick.
It does, and to be honest with you, when it's quick, it blows your mind because you always go back to that one experience that was shitty and slow.
Yeah, 100%. And that's really where I focus a lot of my time and energy. And because, a lot of the things obfuscated from the actual existence of, like, technology and everything is really, like, I use the phrase from an episode of Futurama. And it's, some people get it, some people don't. But it's really when you do things right, people don't realize you've done anything at all. So the idea is that you have weighted your reactive work and dwindled it down to a point where you are solely focused on the proactive side of it. You're trying to anticipate that person, that organization, that department, that market, whoever it may be, before it gets to that point. Like, and even if you don't have a solution.
Yeah.
Like, you're thinking in the back of your mind, oh, shit, I have no idea what this is going to look like on the back end. But I'll get there. You want to get to that point in your own mind, in the conversation, in how you actually structure everything, before who you're talking with, before the organization, before the market. You want to get there before they do, so that way you can either, A, start building it somewhat to get it to that ready, go live type of approach, or you're at least, figuring it out, because the worst thing that you can do is inaction.
Oh, I mean, yeah. That in inaction's basically, is that where it's like you don't have an action to do, or you're at a point where you can't do anything? Is that, I mean,
so there are two extremes to this.
Okay.
So there's moving for the sake of motion, which is moving for no substantial purpose. And then you have things on the other end, which is I am either too, I don't want to use the expression scared, but that's kind of like you are so paralyzed by
the risk,
the number of choices, like you don't know where to start moving. And that is a very, very dangerous place to be.
Yeah.
So
you can almost feel backed into a corner almost in that case.
Correct. And you, in that instance, you don't necessarily want to be in a position where you let that fear and paralysis stop you from actually moving, because part of being in this type of industry is you may only have like 20 to 40% good information, and you have to start making decisions.
Yeah.
So you really have to go, okay, I understand that if I act on this that I know, I only have, this much info to move on. So I'm going to identify where the best place to go would be. I'm going to start driving in that direction. And if I need to course correct, I need to course correct, because that's a big thing, is about being iterative. You basically take in more information and go, okay, cool, I need to redirect. I need to move this direction. Oh, shit.
Yeah.
I need to backtrack and actually go back the other way.
Yeah.
And granted, if you have a supportive structure above you, those people will understand that you're acting in the best interest of the organization. but it's dangerous when people are malicious, and that's a whole personnel issue altogether. But you really, that is a core competency, is inaction is unacceptable. Sitting and doing nothing is going to be the worst thing that you can do. Excuse me.
Oh, you're all good. You're good. No, you're good, dude. You're good. So, so basically, when the thing I was going to ask you too is that you brought up something that we spoke about earlier. You said Amazon. Amazon, we all think and this is what probably majority of listeners are listening, we think of Amazon as we order something, we search it. I'm looking for a Cincinnati Reds t-shirt. Oh, it's on Amazon for $22.99. I ordered it extra large. It's shipped. And I can also pay $10 or whatever or whatever the fee. I think it's $11.95, somewhere around there, for Prime once a month. And I'm going to get streaming services and TV and free shipping and all that. But the main money maker is what? What did you tell me today?
So that is Amazon Web Services.
So, and that is actually called AWS.
Yep, AWS for short.
So
correct.
A lot of people are not realizing that Amazon, who's actually been doing this since like 2004, and Jim actually educated me on this today. I found it very interesting because, Amazon's pretty much one of the biggest companies in the world. I mean, Jeff Bezos is taking it to the top. It's definitely, what it's doing globally and especially here in the United States is it's insane. And Amazon also, it's a convenience factor for the consumer. All day. But what Jim was telling me is with AWS is they have web services. They have something they can provide. And, a lot of the websites that you're using today, ESPN.com, NBA.com, those are just a couple of examples of some major key websites that are visited by millions daily that are using Amazon Web Services. Pretty much all the sites you can really think of. So, Jim, kind of go into what AWS is and why it's the main money maker for Amazon.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you had mentioned and we discussed earlier today, whenever we were driving in the car, AWS was essentially started by Amazon internal IT, or whatever they deemed IT at the time. There's some delineation as far as roles, responsibilities, stuff like that goes. But they started it and said, "Hey, we actually kind of like this. This might be a viable product." And what it really is the data center that I mentioned earlier. So a big, essentially warehouse with multiple sources of power, multiple sources of internet, basically built in fault-tolerant places where they can't, less than likely to be destroyed by some kind of, natural disaster.
And not to get onto a side subject real quick, but you bring up these, not the natural disaster preventable places. Is this the places that they talk about, like in Pennsylvania and out kind of the Midwest area in Colorado, these like hidden storage facilities?
No, we're not like talking Iron Mountain territory stuff.
Iron Mountain,
No.
Okay. That's. I just wanted to go there. If anybody is listening that hasn't heard about Iron Mountain and all that, look it up. It's pretty fascinating.
I'll just go on a quick sidebar with that. Iron Mountain was literally started in a mountain. Yes, you should look it up.
It was started in a mountain. And what's crazy is before I had learned about the Iron Mountain situation, I was at Leo Weekly, my former employer, the newspaper, and I'm sitting there at Leo, and I would see Iron Mountain on like our paper shredder or one of our devices around the office, and you don't think about it. You're just like, oh, it's just another typical brand. And plus it's kind of like, why do I give a shit about the paper shredding company? But then you start watching YouTube and all these crazy videos of like conspiracies and hidden mysteries and secret bunkers and all this stuff. And you see the Iron Mountain story on YouTube, and I'm like, is that real? And I'm like, holy shit, that's real. So that's just something that I had to ask, because when you started talking about, the faults and like being protective, I was like, are we talking Iron Mountain here?
We're not talking Iron Mountain, but
yeah.
We can come back to that as far as compliance is concerned and document
Is Iron
retention.
Mountain a good ice cream sundae name? Also, real quick,
You'd probably get sued for it.
Yeah,
like
somehow.
if I had to, it's like if you think about it in like if Baskin Robbins or
come get the Iron Mountain, Rocky Road.
I feel like there would be what's the one ice cream brand with Cherry Garcia. What's the name of that?
Ben and Jerry's.
Yeah, like I feel like Ben and Jerry's could do a play on words with it.
Yeah,
because
somehow.
who would want to eat like Iron Mountain ice cream? That just sounds like, oh, I'm getting heavy metal dosage just sitting here.
Heavy metal dosage, or you're getting your vitamins. Like, I got to get my iron intake. But it's just.
Oh, dude,
I feel
that's
like
even better.
Yeah.
Like it's supplemental ice cream.
It's supplemental
yes.
ice cream. That's $1 billion idea. No, I think it's just ice. I think Iron Mountain. The reason I bring it up with a sundae, I just feel like it'd just be a dominant ass sundae. Like you just get this stackable mountain. So back into the Amazon thing. We're talking about the faults and everything. We'll get back into that. This is how this podcast flows. We talk about all kinds of stuff. So back into the Amazon web services. So this is where I want to know, and this is something we didn't get to discuss in the car. How did Amazon, before Amazon became Amazon, how did they convince these big companies like ESPN, CBS Sports, all these places to use their web services?
So that's kind of a big onion that I may not have all the answers to on this one. But kind of if we were to go back to whenever they launched this stuff and they started getting out there, I'll go back to the original question before the Iron Mountain Sunday derailment, which is okay. So if you think about the data center that I was talking about, where there's a big-ass warehouse, it's full of servers, full of switches, those traffic cops I mentioned earlier, and you buy a specific section. In old times, you would buy a specific server. That server is configured in that instance. It only has so much processing power, so much RAM, so much storage, and that's it. If you need to scale up, congratulations, you got to buy more servers. You got to basically lease more devices from these people. And so the AWS model is, well, what if we just obfuscate that away from everything that these people are actually dealing with and say, you need to scale up, i.e. you need a beefier server, or you need to scale out and have more servers. So they would basically allow you over, just in the snap of an instance to actually expand. So they took that model and basically, that's where they are today, is that it's super elastic, it's dynamic. You can basically say, once I hit this threshold, I want you to beef up whatever I got by however much. Wow. And if I need to have it across certain regions, if I need it in, all the data centers here in the US, dude, make it happen. Boom, have it go. But when you came from that previous time, whenever you used to buy, I want this beefy of a server or this many services or this big of a pipe, i.e. how much your, network connectivity is, how many, if you think about your home internet, I always think about it in that context. It's like I get 100 down. It's like, well, same thing goes in a data center. It's like, I want the same thing. I want symmetrical 100 by 100. Or I want this or that. And those were always tiered pricing. So companies like Rackspace, that was the big player back then. But they really didn't do a lot to attract people because they allowed that elasticity across the board.
And also you say you had to buy that software, that stuff pretty much. I mean, are they have enough space to keep adding? That's what I'm trying to figure out. So like you have this place, you're a company, you have say for example, you have ESPN and they want to buy, and this is kind of more talking about maybe the olden days, but it's like they want to keep buying these servers or these routers, however they got to do it. I mean, is there space to do all that? I mean, is there was there like, did they know that they were going to buy more?
So they really, I mean, I can't speak to their business model and how they
yeah,
capacity plan for everything, but
yeah,
I would
I totally get that. Yeah,
I would not be surprised if, they were consuming analytics on a massive scale to actually plan for, people are going to be exhibiting this level of behavior over the course of the next 18 months.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, with COVID, I'm sure that they were probably just like groveling for like every kind of resource
sure.
But they are so huge at this point, and they have data centers all around the world. I would not be surprised if capacity planning is just like a small checkbox in what they do.
So technology-wise, another thing that is become huge, especially here in the States, and you hear conspiracy theories, all kinds of bullshit with it, but this is something I do know, actually, but I want to ask you just for the listener standpoint. Again, this is about learning, so there's a lot of questions I want to ask you. What's 5G?
I am
no, like from a standpoint for the novice, like beginner, like is it a new? How would you describe it to somebody that doesn't know what 5G is? It's some 18-year-old kid.
So I am not a subject matter expert in the wavelengths associated with like data transmission and all this stuff with cellular technology, but just suffice it to say that I can, in my very, very vague, because it's really not something that I deal with. Like,
I understand.
And let me inject this to say, like, there may be some people out there that go, "What? How do you not know this?" And my whole thing is, it's cellular technology. I only put things over wires.
Yeah,
like that's how I'm trying to like transmit data. So whenever I say something like that, it's really a you have, let's kind of put it really as simply as we can.
Mm-hmm.
So we have the Model T.
Yes.
We have the not the original, but the first mass-produced car.
Yes.
So if we want to say those were, whatever phones the military used before they actually went to the, consumer market.
Consumer cell phone.
Yeah. And then we get to like 1G, where it's just like, oh yeah, there we go. That's going to be first consumer thing, and that's kind of the equivalent of things that came out in the 1920s. And then we get to 3G whenever we're like in the 40s, 50s, 60s. And technology moves a lot more rapid. So I'm really trying to just like, my car analogies are kind of like...
you're doing great. You're doing
no.
great.
And I'll bring this back to the reason why I use a car analogy all the time, because most people can actually grasp onto it. Yeah. So, and then we get to like 4G, which is 90s, early aughts. And then now we're like 5G. Oh, hey, that's a new 2021 whatever. Insert whatever car that you want. It's got all kinds of technology. It anticipates your actions. It will stop you from ramming somebody. It's that degree of expansion, only in the sense of it's a different type of wave.
Gotcha.
So it holds more, it does more, and it actually does not cause coronavirus.
Yeah, cause all these crazy conspiracies. No, you nailed that perfect. That's just a question that I feel like people definitely people just hear shit and they want to learn stuff and know stuff, and they're just like, what is this? And they hear about all these things. So something that you're familiar with Apple products, something that me and Christine and Jim actually discussed today. We actually stopped at a Best Buy today to grab something, but so Apple products, this Apple TV, we're talking about Apple TV 4K. What is Apple TV for somebody? Because that is something, I will be honest, before using it at your house or at my other friend's house, I'm a huge Apple guy, but it's something I'm not familiar with. I mean, is it something? Is it a streaming service more, or is it just a way to have TV on your screen?
So let's split this up a little bit. Let's talk about Apple TV, the hardware platform, and then we can talk about Apple TV, the streaming service, which we don't have. Just to, let your listeners know, we don't have Apple TV streaming service in this household because we have already a boatload of streaming services.
Yeah.
But suffice it to say, like I said, I worked for the company. I'm a big fanboy, and I hate to use that, but that's the most accessible one that people use. But I'm a big Apple hardware software advocate because it's the most integrated, it's the most seamless, it does everything that we want it to do when we want to do it, and really it just works.
Yeah.
Like, even though I work in technology, it's like the one last thing I don't want to not work is going to be my computer. Like, dude, if I have to troubleshoot my machine whenever I'm actually trying to fix something, that is the most infuriating thing ever. And that 9 times out of 10, anytime I have to use a Windows machine, and I'm not trying to throw shade at Microsoft or anything like that.
Fuck you, Microsoft. Not joking. I'm just joking.
Brought to you by Sleezy. No, I'm not saying any of that.
I'm totally joking. No, Microsoft. Shout out to Microsoft. Actually, something cool Microsoft did recently, and I'll let Jim finish here. That was a total joke. So nobody at Microsoft or Windows come after me. But the one thing I will say is this. Microsoft does always have sometimes some games that are more for the Xbox or more for Microsoft computers, and you can't play them on like a PlayStation or somewhere else. But Microsoft Flight Simulator actually used GPS cameras and like satellite cameras, and now you can actually fly around on these airplanes, and you're actually seeing real life scenarios. It's a lot better than the terrain they used to have on the old flight simulators. So I will say this, Microsoft does very well with that. They also do, they did some of the Tycoon games, I think, were involved with some of those. Like Zoo Tycoon, I think, was like, and Roller Coaster Tycoon. I think they were made for, they end up trying to make versions for the Mac. But with Microsoft, I will say Flight Simulator has stepped it up.
Did you see the Flight Simulator stuff whenever the boat was stuck in the canal?
No.
They actually incorporated it.
Wow. That's fantastic. See, I thought that was super cool. And I know I've always just been a big Apple guy. I've been Apple for majority of my whole life. I mean, I use Windows computers in my JCPS schools back in Louisville. But it's like, I like Apple. I'm familiar with it. I'm comfortable with it. Both companies are killing the game, of course. But with Apple,
I can get back to the Apple TV.
Yeah, back with the Apple TV, pretty much. The thing I was going to say with that, the other question I had really quick with Apple TV that you brought up, see, when you say streaming service, I mean, how many streaming services are out there? I mean, do you think? You think there's over 50?
Oh, I'm sure there's more than that. If you think about the stuff that's not mainstream, I mean, like outside of the Netflix, the Hulu, there's probably stuff out there specific. And I'm not an anime guy. I'm sure there's something for anime.
Yeah, for sure. And the other thing, and then get back to Apple TV. The reason I bring that up is, so we're talking about all these different streaming stuff. I had a thing when I was a kid called the Sega Channel, and this is more into video games, but I could literally stream any game to my Sega Genesis through the cable network, and I had all the Genesis games on this Genesis, and this was like way before its time. I feel like all these companies, WB, HBO Max, or HBO in general, ESPN, every Netflix, all this stuff, this was the goal probably for years. People that saw into the future said, I should be able to watch TV and know I want to watch this right here. I can just click a button. I think that people saw this before. Like, I think this was the long-term goal.
So, I'm going to misquote the shit out of this. Mm-hmm. So, in the early days, and I think it's the Atari. Mm-hmm. That's why I'm saying I think it's the Atari.
I just found one of those in a basement 2 days ago.
Dude,
actually.
you should make sure it works and see what generation it is and figure out how much it's
wild.
worth.
Yeah, things wild.
But there was a modem for it, and these people created this subscription service for being able to play the games over a modem that could be plugged into that thing.
Oh, shit.
And those people found the barrier of entry to be too expensive, and you were allowed to have the game for like a day or a week or something like that. I'll have to find it and give it to you, because it's like if you have show notes or anything you give out, you could be like, oh yeah, here's what he was talking about. But basically those people found that nobody was subscribing to it, but what they went on to found was AOL.
Whoa.
So if you, in the scheme of things where you're talking about a subscription service, AOL solved the problem with the barrier of entry, and they actually went on to do stuff. So
AOL was huge. It was huge.
Yeah. So anyway, to go back to the Apple TV thing. So Apple TV is hardware that gets plugged into your network and plugged into your TV. It's a little box about the size of a, pack and a half of cards wide, about half a, or full deck of cards tall. Well, the newer ones are a little bit bigger. But comes with a little remote. You can stream content from your computers. You can stream content that you have purchased from iTunes, both, TV shows, movies, music, whatever you want. And you can install apps from like Netflix, Disney Plus, Hulu, stuff like that. So we have currently in the house two. We have a not so new generation down here, and then we have an older generation, and I don't know the generation numbers anymore. That's long left my brain. But those allow us to watch what's on the screen right now, which is King of the Hill TM, Nobody Sue Us. Disney. Yeah. That's a Disney property, if I'm not mistaken.
Shout out to King of the Hill, best cartoon of all time.
And you really have the capability of doing a lot. You can stream from your actual phone, from your computer. So, like, if you were chilling here and we wanted to put up what's on your screen right now, which is off camera, nobody can see it.
Yeah.
If we wanted to see the levels at which we're recording, we could, just share that up there and be able to see it. Wouldn't really do us much good. It's really low latency, though. So that's how it functions in the home. It's really, really awesome.
That is cool. That's
so
super cool.
If we were to... Sorry if you're hearing one of our dogs sneeze right now.
It's allergy season.
Yep.
It's all good.
So if we were to talk about how does an Apple TV function inside of a pretty Apple-centric environment for audiovisual stuff. So let's say that we have a conference room with a TV.
Yes.
It's plugged up on the wall. Historically, we would have to run a cable from whatever, desk conference table that you have down through the floor potentially, which is typically concrete. So you have to have a floor core drilled.
Okay.
And then they have to run conduit underneath up through the drywall to that TV to plug in.
Wow.
So you have multiple points of failure there, right? And then pray to God whenever you plug in it works. And if something's wrong, congratulations, it's going to be a fun time.
Yeah.
And that's something that you would use several, vendors, partners for, what have you. But if I have an Apple TV behind there and I have an Apple computer and I have good wireless infrastructure, I just plop down inside of that conference room, say, hey, I'm going to share to that Apple TV. Boom, I'm screen sharing like that. So I don't have to drill a hole through the floor, run all that cable, and then I have this, whole risk,
Shit,
kind of.
You just need Wi-Fi.
Yeah, exactly,
yeah.
Exactly, and that's low barrier of entry. And if we're talking super pro, then I'm eliminating the Apple TV out of it. But this is kind of like, dude, you're a small, medium business. Even if you're in that startup kind of feel phase, it'll work. But that just works. It just functions as you would expect. That's the great thing about it. and you can manage it. You can take all these Apple TVs in an entire organization, and even if you have buildings, you can manage it using a tool called Jamf, Jamf.
Okay.
It's the gold standard with managing Macs, managing Apple TVs, managing iPhones, iPads. They've been around for years. They do a great job.
That's great.
There are other solutions out there that don't do everything that they do. Fleetsmith is one of them. You can look at other open source stuff there's Adigy as well. You can look at SaltStack if you really want to go down that road.
Yeah.
I'm pretty much, just full disclosure, I'm a buy versus build kind of guy. If somebody's already done it, I'm going to buy it rather than actually build it, because if I have to build it, I'm going to try and monetize it.
Yeah, exactly. What's the point if you're not going to get something out of it in that aspect? So another thing with Apple, and I heard this rumor, and I could be wrong, and I feel like you would know this more. So this is a question I really don't know. I know, I have an iPhone. I use Apple Pay every day. Is Apple going to eventually have a bank of some sort? Is that true, that they're going to go a banking route where you can bank with Apple?
I really don't. I mean, this is all speculation.
I don't know if you've ever heard that. Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing. So, thinking back to the amount of rumors that I've heard over the entirety
of Apple?
Just pretty much if we were to sequester the last, 15 years of Apple rumors, one of the things was, Apple is going to release a TV console. That comes up.
That would be wild.
So, dude, the thing about it was that, I heard this so much. 10 years ago, people were like, yeah, the new Apple TV, it's going to be an actual TV set. And I'm just like, I've been hearing this for years. I shrug, right? I'm not expecting a lot from it. But the same thing happened with, once Tile came out, people started talking about, air tags and all this stuff. And it took years, and they just released it, hell, I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do. Shrugs. I'm just really at a loss. At this point, they always partnered with Barclay and, hey, you're going to buy a new machine. Mm-hmm. Cool, right on. So here's your financing. It goes to Barclays. You're off to the races. Now they have the Apple Card. I don't foresee them getting into that type of thing.
The only reason I asked that is because there's such a strong company, a powerful company, and I've heard rumors. It's like with Apple Pay doing so well, you would think maybe they go that route.
I think they're happy probably being the middleman.
Yeah,
because they get
probably don't want to get their hands dirty in that shit.
Probably, but they also get to extract all the data of people doing what they're doing and whether or not they choose to act on it. That's kind of the great thing that I'll kind of step aside here and say, whenever you get something for free, congratulations, you're the product. Facebook, you're the product. Instagram, you're the product. You name it, you get a free account, you are literally being used as a mule to figure out what people want. And they're feeding you a bunch of stuff to try and figure out how to keep you on the platform longer, trying to figure out how to hack your psyche so that way you're actually spending more time, so that way they can feed you more ads and they can actually keep you, just scrolling down the line.
I'm not going to lie. I'm super guilty of that. And I think I'm super guilty of that because of birthday clubs and membership clubs. I'm very guilty of, I sign up for every birthday reward program, every restaurant reward program, membership card. I use the shit out of them. And for the whole month of October, I eat free because I get all these free meals and free entrees and sides. But it's like, maybe I'm a puppet for all these restaurants. They're like, oh, we can get this guy to come in and get a free macaroni and cheese. We'll get him to not only spend money, but we'll know what he likes too.
Well, there's Bill Burr has a great bit on this. It's like, can I have your phone number? No, why? Why do you want my phone number? So I can save 15 cents on bootleg Fruit Loops? It's like, no, you're up to something.
It is. I mean, the more you think about it, yeah. And I guess I'm just more in the aspect where I just don't give a fuck, and I'm just like, hey, I want that free birthday cake every October. But the thing about it is, I don't think I'm up to anything wrong, and I don't think anyone's coming after me. But it's the whole scheme of it all.
It's not even that, dude. It's
the point principle, I guess.
We're talking more digital platforms.
Yeah.
It's like, so the whole Target fiasco. Are you familiar with this?
No, please enlighten me on Target. I have a Target story after this. Good.
So there are two situations here. So thing number one.
Okay.
And this is more technology related, so it's for the people that want to know about this type of thing.
Yes.
So this is why making sure your edges of your network are secured. And whenever I say edges, I mean, say, for example, like in this household right now, down in this area here that you can't see off camera, there's a modem from an ISP. And so that goes into a router, and that router is secured. And so basically I've hardened that to where, granted, knock on wood, I'm hoping that somebody doesn't take this as like, oh yeah, I'm going to try and see if I can hack that
shit. Yeah.
And so, that's the edge. So what happened with Target, and this happened within the last decade, I can't remember whenever it was, but they essentially found a way that somebody left a hole to an HVAC system, and that HVAC system allowed them to gain broader access to the network. When they gained broader access to the network, they got into the financial systems. They were able to get into credit cards. So anybody like in you may have noticed, like, there was probably a period of time, if you're an adult, that you probably got popped like multiple credit cards within probably a 2 to 3 year period. Because I know that we did. We like all our cards, like we were just getting new cards all the time because we go to Target and or go to several other providers or stores or whatever.
Yeah. And
it was like, come to find out, that was the root cause. One of the root causes, because it was just like a mass of things. And the bank that we work with was just like, oh yeah, this was identified, yada, yada, yada. And we can talk more about dark web stuff later on. But the flip side of that is a father goes to Target and starts chewing out a manager.
Okay.
Because he received a mailer, their household received a mailer for infant products. And he was like, what is this about? This isn't the typical mailer we get, yada, 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 just chewing this guy out. Hand him a new one. And anybody who's worked retail knows the stereotypical, like, I am a pissed off person coming in to just lay into you because I have nobody else to lay into.
Yeah, a Karen.
Well, I wanted to leave it gender indifferent, so that way it's like we didn't have to like sit here and go, what's the Karen equivalent for somebody who's Gabe? Oh,
yeah,
God,
Gabe
bring
to
that
me.
up again.
I'm sorry.
Jeez.
I'm sorry. It's Gabe. So
I
mean,
dude,
be a
I see Gabriel and I'm just like, I just see like a
Gabriel
skinny,
Iglesias is cool.
like not ripped, like shorter dude, like unassuming. He's not gonna hurt anybody. It's no big deal. And then it's like, oh, hey, Gabe.
Hey, any Gabes out there that's listened to the show? It's just a joke. There's a Gabe store in Tennessee. It is a store, and I just think it's, I don't know. I just don't like the name Gabe. I'm sorry. I'm going to keep it real.
If your name is Gabe and you are super jacked, please don't come and find me.
Yeah, yes. And also, maybe it's because of Gabe from The Office, too. Like, he was such a shitty person on The Office, but I was like, man, that name. But thing about about those people in retail. So they come in and they're chewing out this Target
So
manager.
they're chewing out this
Why
manager.
is it such a big deal?
So I'll get there. I'll get there. I'm burying the lead a little bit.
Ooh, I like it.
So come to find out that purchasing trends were tracked via credit card. So, whenever you go to Target and say you buy a certain amount, like a certain type of product, they're tracking that on the credit card number, which is super easy to do. Walmart's been doing it for years, but they just hadn't. I mean, for all intents and purposes, I did not know if they were actioning anything off of that. But what they had done was they had figured out what people had purchased when running up to being an expecting mother, even before. So they had figured out the fork for those that were trying to get pregnant and those that may have accidentally gotten pregnant. And they figured out that this man's daughter had accidentally gotten pregnant and bought all the things associated with it. And so they sent the baby mailer that had cribs, that had strollers, diapers, everything expecting mothers would basically have they'd be needing for that type of situation. And he goes home to his teenage daughter, confronts her, like, why did I get this? Why is this a thing? And she breaks down. They do a pregnancy test. She's pregnant from her high school boyfriend. He goes back, rightfully so. And granted, this is the one thing, like, for all those that have ever worked retail, that you wish that you have this moment, but I've never gotten it. But you get the, sir, there are things that were happening in my household that I was not aware of. Thank you so much for putting up with me. I apologize for chewing your ass out.
Wow.
And so that's the level of data analytics that they're doing behind the scenes. So even though you're not participating in any kind of subscription, or, well, not even that, but discount service or membership service, you're still giving them full disclosure. Now, Apple obfuscates that with Apple Pay.
Yeah.
But, I mean, here's the thing. I don't care if anybody wants to advertise to me. I'm just like, I'm
going to buy what I want.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, marketing and advertising is important. I've worked it. I did it for 5.5 years, and I think it's something that, is big for products, and it's just, it does teach you about what's out there. But sometimes when you just know, and you know what you want, and you don't need the advertising. I do like when some people tag me in advertisements, and I might not know about that product. But bringing up Target, so I have a funny story about Target. So I today, actually, with Christine and Jim, we hit we had a used bookstore today that has CDs, books, called McKay's, video games, toys. I mean, it's half-price books on steroids. So it's half-price books, super juiced, Jose Canseco. But the thing about it is this: driving around just.
We're gonna need to come back to like steroids here later on.
Yeah, we can.
I want to hit up on that.
We can. So for hidden gem though, this hidden gem that I've been finding out there in the world is Pokemon. Pokemon's hot. Pokemon's back. I think I've talked about it in some episodes. I'm a huge sports collector. I was into Pokemon when I was a kid. Sold my cards, made a lot of money, kind of got out of it. But now recently, I've been doing my eBay store, which I do want to shout out. Mr. E loves to sell and buy. Mr. E loves to sell and buy. Got over 300 items. Go check it out today. But basically, I've been flipping Pokemon stuff. I found some Pokemon cards recently in the basement. And it's just shit. You can find Pokemon stuff at these bookstores and this used stuff, t-shirts, everything. You can flip it for 4 times its value. Well, at Target, I have a girl that I know, and basically, she works at Target, and she's a manager, and so she tells me the ins and outs whenever we kick it, and I am completely blown away by this card fiasco. There's like a card situation at Target. So in Louisville, Target at the J-Town one, where I live, and supposedly this is happening all over. Like some states you can't even find any Pokemon cards, but these Targets still have a sports card Pokemon trading card section. Every Friday at the J-Town one in Louisville, there is 80 men lined up, and I'm going to say men. This is not, there's actually no women. It's all these angry old men that are like, I got to get my Pokemon cards to go resell on Amazon and eBay, and they're waiting in line, and they fight each other, and they try to pay the manager to move up on the list, and the manager has all the numbers, all the names, and they'll be like, hey, you know Rick's been getting here super late, but he like moves up in line. Well, so this girl that I know is actually monitoring the situation, and they're trying to send them to other stores and all these different places. I find it so crazy that there's people lined up like this is what they do every week. And so there's really no point for these Targets to even have these trading card sections because they're so popular and they resell, they're just gone. Is there any product, and not Pokemon or sports card related, Jim, out of curiosity, say you're retired, Jim, you're bored, you're looking for a hobby, what is something that you would line up at a Target to get?
Oh, jeez.
What is it? Just a curious question.
Nothing.
I
got nothing, man.
Nothing?
I mean,
I'm going to tell you what I would line up for. Let me tell you. I'm going to line up for them dumps. That's what I...
Wait.
When I say dumps, I mean that new limited edition stuff. I feel like Target... All these different brands now, I've been finding out these things. I call them dumps. They dump that new product out that's limited. There's only a certain amount, and I go out and buy it.
I thought you were going to say, like, I will line up for those dumps. Yeah, those dump cakes.
Oh, no. Dump cakes, I can wait on. I ain't lining up for that shit. I'll go somewhere else to get my dump cakes. I don't need to wait line. But the new
dude, you can make the dump cakes at home, man. You just got to get the pan. I was sitting here going, wait, you would line up for the dump cake pans?
No.
Eric, come on.
I would definitely not line up for the dump cakes, but just dumps like new limited edition stuff. So something I shared with Jim recently. My buddy had shared some sports cards were online at a box at Topps.com. And Trevor Lawrence, this new rookie quarterback, he's supposed to be the number 1 pick, go to the Jaguars. He has a box. He signed a contract with Topps where all of his stuff will be exclusive with them. I bought it for $75. It's already going for $250 on eBay. It's insane. So I understand these guys lining up for the cards and the Pokemon cards. I do find it extreme, though. The talking shit and the like, hey, Paul was late, or hey, Paul called Troy a bitch. He should move up over this. It's just it's not that serious. But I do understand though the hustle. Now that I'm in this reselling business and finding things and flipping stuff, it just gets you hyped when you find gems and different things. So let me ask you this, Jim. I know that there's nothing at Target that you're waiting in line for, but when you were a kid, was there anything that you waited in line for?
No.
Nope. Nothing. And the only thing I think I ever waited in line for was I would wait in line for a Dreamcast, and I got it. And I waited, but I was super duper young, and I waited, and I got that Dreamcast, and it was cool. I don't know where it's at now, but
you probably were disappointed after nobody made games for it, man.
There was barely any games on the The Dreamcast had some dope features, like the NFL Dreamcast game that had Randy Moss on it was incredible. Like, I love that football game, one of the best out. But it's like, yeah, Dreamcast they had a fishing game on there that was pretty cool. That was neat.
My cousin had one, and if I remember correctly, the graphics were pretty tight.
They were
really, really solid.
Futuristic.
But just like, I think that he had like 3 games for it during the entire lifespan he had it, and
a lot of sports games, which that's what I play mainly. I'm a sports game person. They had tons of great sports games. They had the NBA game of Allen Iverson on the cover. I love that one. But yeah, you're right. The more you think about it, there wasn't a lot, and I like Sega as a brand. I mean, I love the Genesis. I think they make good products when they put stuff out, but it would be cool to see one day Sega come and compete with the Microsofts and Sonys of the world and
don't
make
think
that
they
mega
will,
system. They can't. I know. But it would be cool just to see that mega system and Sonic just teabags Mario one time. It just gets him. But so if you were you a gamer growing up at all? No. So technology. What interested you in technology? How far back did you start getting? I mean, I know you told us your background, but has it been something you've always been interested in?
So it's always served a purpose. So
and that's something you
yeah.
value.
So let's go back. Like if I were to go to just one, being a musician. So first and foremost, like, couldn't afford to get like a big Pro Tools rig back whenever, like, it was 20 years ago. It's just, that wasn't a thing. I wasn't going to be able to afford that.
It was expensive.
But what I was able to afford was a 4-track Boss recorder, which then upgraded to an 8-track, and then I got the big 24-track, like, Roland automated faders. Like, it was full blown, like, even, well, back then it was a big hard drive for 30 gigs, but working with that type of stuff and knowing how it functions and the service that it actually, or the function it served to actually execute what I was wanting it to do, like, that all was an interesting problem to solve. So whenever I go and look at, like, how did I employ that same type of thought process, just like whenever we were sitting here messing around with this setup, like, I hadn't touched, like, this version of GarageBand because I use Logic, and I'm just like, dude, it should function the same way. What is going on here? It must be a setting. There's something here I'm missing.
Something's missing.
So, like, I was looking for an interesting problem to solve. So in the research laboratory that I worked in college, which was an atmospheric science laboratory, we had a single computer with sensors plugged into it and all this other stuff. And it's like, how do you make this work? Figure it out. And what does that actually do? That gives you data to give to the PhD, whoever your research advisor is. And that's an interesting problem to solve. So those things are really, really small time. Those things are very, very isolated. There's not a lot of impact. How many people are affected? Very few. So whenever you think about it from a business capacity, even you scale it out, that type of thing becomes way, way more impactful, even if somebody doesn't even understand that you've done it.
True.
So whenever I think about that, it all goes back to serving people. Like, that's the big thing, is like, how can I impact the most people in my time on this planet? So as
that's
a music,
very important.
100%.
No, that's a great lesson for everybody. I mean, that's the way people should think and view. It's like, how can you leave? That's a big thing that I've preached on my past episodes. It's about leaving a positive impact and a legacy. It's like, why do you want to be remembered being a piece of shit? Why, and I'll be honest with you, there's some people that I know that are giant pieces of shit, and they'll be remembered that. And they could probably, and what's sad is, there's some people that I know that are pieces of shit back in the day, and they're really trying to make it and be better. And it's hard to really not view them as a piece of shit. But, it's like, if you do what's right, you be nice to people, you give out, you be positive, you be supportive. That's all that matters. Like, that's what you should be remembered for. And I think the world would be a lot better place if people
100%.
did that. You start thinking about others instead of thinking about yourself. It just, when you start thinking about yourself more, it backfires, even on single missions where you're trying to figure out what you want to do personally.
Yeah. Well, and the golden rule is really kind of like, hey, do unto others, is that, like, what you don't be an asshole to other people when you don't want to somebody to be an asshole to you.
And
you know,
it's like, and there's people that I've met. I've met so many people over the years, and there's people that'll be like, "Well, I'm just an asshole, get over it," or that's, or you be in a bar and you'll hear somebody say that, like the bartender make a comment, and it's like, that's sad. Back in the day, you might laugh at it. Your early 20s, you think, oh, that's funny. Like, this guy's the typical asshole. Then you think about it. Wow, the dude's still an asshole 5 years later. It's like, get out of that persona. You don't have to. It doesn't make you cooler.
So the one thing I will say for those types of people that just say, well, I'm just an asshole. Okay, cool. You know what? You're going to be an asshole right where you are for the rest of your life. You're going to be in that bar. You're going to be in that position. You're not going to get anywhere because, vinegar doesn't attract a lot of flies. Honey attracts the flies. So if you want people to come along with you, and I'm oversimplifying something that's very, very complex with human psyche here, but you really, nobody wants to work with an asshole.
No, nobody wants to be around an asshole. Like, when you have an asshole boss, you dread going to work. When you have asshole coworkers, you want to punch them. When you have asshole people that you just deal with on a regular basis, you don't want to go to that store, that restaurant, if you know that server or that owner is an asshole. It's never a win. There's no win from it. And I just think too, people try to put on this hard exterior because deep down they're just hurt inside, or they they want to try to impress people from this macho exterior. That's another thing that cracks me up. These people that put on this macho man exterior, that they have to be Mr. Tough. I drive a truck that's fucking 25 feet high. No, your penis is still 3 inches, buddy, and I don't give a fuck. If you drive one of those trucks, you're trying to do a pissing match, and guess what? I'm gonna win every time. And I drive a fucking SUV. It's like, I'm over the macho man like persona. I gotta have this big truck. I gotta look like Hulk Hogan. So get back into something that you had brought up, and where we both brought up about 10 minutes ago: steroids.
Yep.
So what was the thing you wanted to talk about that?
So I think it's interesting, and I've never kind of brought this up in a public forum. I think that it's interesting, and let me go back. As a somebody who participates in road cycling pretty avidly, I find it interesting that in the United States of America, they targeted a European sport and made a mockery of somebody who had done so much great. I want to be abundantly clear whenever I'm saying this.
Okay. I know
completely clear that
exactly
it's like there was a massive doping scheme, and that was a whole thing with the USPS and Lance Armstrong and everything. But here's the thing. Everybody else in cycling was doing it. 100%. Don't kid yourself. Everyone was doing it.
But Lance got the biggest
he got
rap from it because he's the star.
100%. But he was an American star. Why did he get targeted in the United States and totally cast out? But yet, MLB, NBA, NFL, why did they get an easy pass?
Well, I'm going to say this. I'll say this. They didn't. And the reason why...
I call bullshit on that. 110%. They got a fucking pass.
I think they got... Here, we can dive into a really... Okay, I'm glad you brought this up, because I'm not saying that... Okay, let me think of the best way to phrase this. So
they got a pass. Here, let me help you. They got a pass.
No, because there's people in baseball that are paying for it. So here's the thing about baseball. Okay, we'll bring up baseball, MLB. So MLB has been around clearly since the late 1800s, and baseball has evolved. I mean, baseball has evolved from the standpoint of fucking the batting helmet, the fucking thing you wear on your fucking leg, the shin protector, all this stuff. The 90s and the 2000 period, and when I say the 90s, 2000 period, I'm talking about 95 to about 2010. The long ball was there, but it was longer.
Mark
than
McGwire was super huge.
Sammy Sosa,
Juiced
all these.
up. Sammy
They
Sosa
all were.
juiced up.
But here's the thing, though. They all got caught. None of those guys will play in the Hall of Fame. That's the thing about it. These guys care about legacy. They got to keep playing. So I will say that Lance Armstrong got the rap of he's blackballed from the sport. And
he can't compete in anything, dude. He gets blackballed from if he goes and wants to do an expedition, dude, he gets kicked out.
And
even if he's doing it in a charitable way.
I get that. But to talk about the baseball standpoint, my viewpoint on baseball is this: NBA. That there's not a lot of PEDs. There is PEDs involved, but there's not tons. And when you talk about NFL, that's a whole nother thing. The NFL, I feel like we just keep learning about PEDs. But with MLB, the thing about it, I'll say is this. So from 95 to 2010, you had McGwire, you had Sosa, you had Jose Canseco, Juan Gonzalez, all these guys, and Juan Gonzalez might have been clean, but Alex Rodriguez, one of my favorite players, Barry Bonds, a lot of these guys that
and hold up, let's just clarify something for your listeners. The PEDs, performance enhancing drugs that we're talking about for these different sports are radically different because they're going to either build muscle, like you want to actually bulk up super huge, like you see the Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa. Those guys were just jacked.
Yeah.
But you have the flip side of that, which is the one that I brought up at the front end, which is you are building for recovery. You want to be able to bike 200 miles and then wake up the next day and then do it again. So those are different types of molecules, different types of chemicals.
And we talked about this on episode 9 of my podcast, the last episode I did with Frankie. We had talked about steroids. We had talked about how just you bringing up how people just get jacked. We were talking about how movies that people get jacked but back on the baseball thing. So you had all these guys, Mark McGwire, all these people, Roger Clemens. They were all using PEDs. The players, though, but during that time, it was entertaining as fuck. Baseball was popular. Baseball was hot. McGwire, Sosa, 1998, sold like crazy. That though, those guys went through all that, made all that money, that hype, but then all of them are blackballed. None of those guys will ever make the Hall of Fame. Alex Rodriguez is the best hitter probably of all time behind Pete Rose. He'll never make the Hall of Fame. PEDs. Roger Clemens, best pitcher probably to ever take a mound. Better than Nolan Ryan. Never will make the Hall of Fame. All these guys. So that's the punishment they get in baseball. NBA, they're still trying to figure out what PEDs are involved, but with the
cocaine.
NFL, which cocaine. Chris Anderson, Birdman, that played for the Denver Nuggets, he got banned for 2 years in the NBA. So all these players do get to return. So I will say that it's bullshit that Lance doesn't get to return or prove his innocence or prove that he's clean. But,
he's too old, man.
Yeah, he's too old now. But I'm saying these other players, like the MLB wise, these players can coach and stuff, but they'll never make the Hall of Fame. So that's how they get the punished in baseball. When it comes to NBA, they do suspensions from the standpoint of 2 years, like Chris Anderson, Birdman. That was a big cocaine issue. He was addicted. But then you look at NFL, and it brings up what we talked about in episode 9. Julian Edelman. He was a NFL player that played for the New England Patriots. He is considered the second best playoff NFL receiver of all time. Did PEDs. And said he was doing them for recovery, to keep in and all that stuff. He's now in this big debate of, is he Hall of Fame worthy? And people bring up the PEDs and people bring up this. But I just wanted to say, I see your point from the standpoint of there is a hypocrisy. There's different punishments for different sports, and that's bullshit. So I will say that. Well, but my argument back was players, though, in some aspect are getting punished, but it might not be the sport. So you're right. It might not be the sport being punished or the team or anything. It's just the player's almost legacy. The player gets to keep playing, but his legacy's tarnished.
Well, and that's kind of where I was going. I was going to say, when's any of the players you just mentioned gone on to Oprah and had to have the conversation about using performance-enhancing drugs.
None
of the people, like Mark McGuire, Sammy Sosa, none of those people have gone on there and said.
They did have to face Congress though, which is pretty big, and you had to be under oath, and a lot of them lied. That's why Roger Clemens was almost facing a year in prison.
I mean, when's the last time you saw that on TV? I mean, granted, here's the thing:
it's during that time.
Remove ESPN.
Yeah.
Remove a sports network out of the equation, dude. Everybody fucking saw Lance Armstrong
more of a national news standpoint
on that type of.
Oh shoot! Yeah. Sorry,
no.
knocked my mic over there. Yeah.
Dude, is the tripod messed up?
Oh, we're good. I got it there. It was just off the base, I felt like.
Oh, nice. But when's the last time it's you didn't see any of those guys? It was Lance fucking Armstrong being the, pariah for all that stuff. And I found it interesting they chose a European-based sport or European source sport. We're not going to pick the American sports. We're not going to, trot out this guy who, recovered from cancer. And granted, I'm, again, glazing over the entire doping program and everything that he had done. I'm not forgiving.
He deserves to be punished, but he does not deserve to be singled out like he did.
I think it's a culturally interesting implication that American media chose, okay, who's the least impactful one here? We can't hurt football, we can't hurt baseball, we can't hurt basketball. Who can we kind of load shed this onto?
And it's not being used in hockey and golf as much, so it's let's go after the cyclist.
Yeah.
Now let me ask you this though. This goes back to the question that was on episode 9 that people actually, when they listened, they brought it up to me, and Frankie and I brought it up. Who is the fucking person that is defining PEDs? What is a PED?
The World Anti-Doping Agency, WADA.
So, but here's the thing you hear. This is the thing I hear, and this is where I'm not saying, and this is where I want to make my claim. This is not saying every pro athlete is guilty or every pro athlete's innocent. But my big problem and my big question is this. A lot of players get caught on PEDs. And I understand there's an anti-doping agency, and if you get caught with something that's on the list, you're a fucking idiot. You deserve the punishment or whatever's coming to you. If you were accidentally, mistakenly taking it, that's a whole nother ball game. And I don't know the scenario. That could have happened. You never fucking know. But the thing that I don't like is this. Say it's such an international scale now with professional sports, just with training, with doctors, with your body. I mean, there's surgeries that you can't get over here in the States that you could go get done over in Europe that, could be approved there. But it's in all different things. In the way they do treatment, therapy, Antonio Brown, when he was going through all his fucking mental crazy shit when he was with the Raiders, he burned his feet because he wanted to go to France and do this certain thing. So it's almost like, in my opinion, these athletes have so much fucking money. It's not a big deal when the off season. Let me just travel to London. I'll go visit this trainer for a week. He'll stretch me out, do this. Hey, you know what, John? You're this awesome receiver over in the States. You're killing. I'm just making it up. Yeah. You're killing it for the Rams or something. Hey, I got this. I'm just making it. Which actually the Rams, I think, can win the Super Bowl this year because of Matt Stafford. That's a whole other thing. I'm a Bengals fan, but Stafford is their new quarterback. I think they can do it. But you get say it's like a onion pill, but it's like onion blah 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 zinc 12 with something, and it's a supplement. I don't fucking know. I'm making up the name. Onion B12, and you get it, and you're popping it, and you think it's just some supplement. It's not a big deal. Anti-doping agency, it pops up on your thing, and you didn't cheat. You didn't have the intention to cheat to get bigger. You thought it was just going to help you get healthier, like a vitamin almost, but it turned out to give you some kind of growth that they found out. It's like, where do we call bullshit? Where does the doctor's note come into play? The prescription note? Or is it just like, hey, you took this thing that is unknown and now you're fucked? I mean, it's kind of like it's.
I got a solution for this.
What? What's the solution?
Let everything be legal.
Ooh.
Just say
like Portland.
So hey, man. so let certain, like, if you want to say, okay, cool, let's draw a line right down the middle and say on one side you have sports where all PEDs are 100% legal. You go the gamut. We're talking everything. So if somebody wants to do testosterone, if they want to do EPO, if they want to do anything, it goes. And we're talking down the road of, dude, you want to snort a line before you actually do stuff? Fair game.
Are they? But here's my question, though, because I feel like this is what players care about in those main sports you brought up. You brought up MLB, NBA, NFL. That's the three big money makers in this
Yep.
world, sport-wise, besides soccer. We're not going to get in the soccer thing. But those three, which shout out to soccer. I love soccer, but that's not what we're talking about right now. Those three main brands. So I understand that solution, and that is an easy solution, and that's something that sometimes you do think, hey, they're the athlete, that's their body, they're making the millions, like, let them do it, it's entertaining.
They're going to kill themselves in the process, it's fine.
They're willing to take the risk. I don't want them to die, I don't want them to get hurt, but they're willing to take the risk. They're doing it because they want to perform. Here's the thing, though. A lot of these players, the big thing is it's legacy. As a kid, you're always wanting to be a Hall of Famer. You want to be a Hall of Famer even in a video game when that's an award status. So it's one of these cases where there's players in the Hall of Fame that never cheated or never did anything dirty and killed the game. It's like, that's also where I don't want to put that guy that had to get juiced out of his mind and he hits bombs 600 feet. He might have been a blast to watch. I'm sorry. I don't want to put him in there. I loved McGuire as a kid. I fucking have so much McGuire stuff. I've sold it. I've kept it. Some of it. It's like, you know, he was fun to watch. That was the fucking best time. That 97, 98 home run race was awesome. And to be honest, a lot of it was thanks to steroids. And it's like, it's a juice ball. It's entertaining. A big controversy now in baseball. Not really with steroids, but it's more of the baseball's different now. So now when the baseball is being thrown by pitchers, the ball's going longer. It's lighter. The pitchers now have a little bit more control and direction on the ball, which can help. But the batter is taking it out of taking over the wall 450 feet because the ball's easier to travel. That's another thing that you can say, well, fuck, that guy 92, say John Olerud is a player. He played first base for the Mets. That dude never did steroids. He never had to hit a ball that's been altered by the Major League Baseball Association. So it's such a thing where I really do think there's a lot of controversy and hypocrisy in sports. So I do believe that, and I agree with you there. I think, but to answer your question about the Lance Armstrong thing, my opinion of why they picked him is, number one, he is the main star of that sport. Number two, I think I agree, he is the low-hanging person.
Well, to me,
it also too is something. It is something alarming, controversy. Like Christine Hernandez right now sitting here watching us do this podcast. Christine's not a huge diehard baseball fan, but back in the day, you come to her and say, "Hey, Mark McGuire did steroids." Okay, that's cool. I'm gonna go read my horror book and go pet the horse. No, it's like, I'm not gonna sit. But then you go to Christine and go, hey, Lance Armstrong, this guy called steroids, he's probably banned from the guy that cured cancer, the guy that had the yellow rubber bands at all the Dick's Sporting, that guy. Yeah, you're right. It's more of a story. It's also too, it is that people fucking, and I'll say this, and this might be TMI phrase, but I've heard the cool kids say this now. America nuts on the tragic story. They nut on that rise of like, I'm the hero, I got this big hero, and then it's like, oh yeah, he's getting fucking torn down. Let's beat this motherfucker to the ball. It's that Jesus Christ mentality of like, let's just beat it. Let's just beat it. No, I'm keeping it real.
No, you're on point.
No, I'm on point with it.
grief.
It's just like, I believe in God. I have no. I'm not saying that. I'm saying though, it's the point of just like, let's beat Jesus Christ. Everybody just they love it. The raft, the crowd. It's like Gladiator. It's like, that's why Gladiator times in Roman days were so popular, because people are like, I fucking love seeing this motherfucker get the shit ripped out by a lion and beat the shit out of. It's like, that's what happened. And I don't even blame, in some aspects, I don't even blame the media, because Lance fucked up. He did wrong. It is doping. But you have a great point, and this is where,
because
there's not a just to finish really quick. There's not a legacy with Lance. There's not a legacy with Lance from the standpoint probably of a huge cycling Hall of Fame that people are just dying to go see. But the legacy of him being remembered, I mean, the fucker was even in dodgeball. He's a legend. He's done a lot. They should at least give him a documentary or some kind of verbal thank you from the standpoint of what he did do positively, and also say all his counterparts were cheating. That's what I was trying to finish with saying. It's like, let's show the world, hey, that doping scandal that was pretty recent 20 years ago, it wasn't all Lance's fault, even if he can't ride anymore.
So that's one good documentary for your listeners to go watch.
Yeah.
Is on Netflix. It's called Icarus. And
is that spelled Ickeris?
Icarus, Icarus.
Okay.
Icarus, like I flew too close to the sun. And it's about a guy who is he went and did Haute Route, which Haute Route is basically the amateur Tour de France. He did it clean and got top 20.
Mm-hmm.
And he's, at the time, this was like 2014. He was like around my age, mid-30s. And he was like, well, what if I went back and did this the next year, doped up? What if I did it juiced? And so he goes back home and he's looking for resources to help him do it.
Mm-hmm.
And he's, trying to figure this out. And he knows, like, he used to be, like, he was on track to actually be a professional cyclist until he ate a wheel in college and spent, like, a year with plastic teeth in his mouth.
Fuck.
So that's kind of I tend to not talk about the dark side of that type of thing, but anyway, he follows the road of like, okay, cool, I'm gonna get Don Catlin in on this, and then Don Catlin backs out, and he gets a guy that's the like head of the Russian laboratory of the Russian version of WADA, Gregory Rodchenkov, and long story short, does his regimen, goes back, has mechanical failures, which is very, very stereotypical. Like, you can train as hard as you want, but, dude, your bike can break. It happens.
Mm-hmm.
And it's his whole journey of uncovering certain things. I will let your listeners actually go and actually watch it. It's worth your time. Like, even if you're not into cycling, it's definitely a really, really good story. Probably the first 20 minutes is cycling centric, and then after that it's just kind of like, whoa, because it talks about how he exposes Russia's entire doping program for worldwide athletics, including the Olympics, and his process for like uncovering it.
How was, you bring up a good point. I'm really glad you bring that up, since we're talking about doping. Russia is very big on the doping scale, not only with the Olympic situation that came recent, but I've heard that another thing they do is they'll take these kids that are born in Russia, and and you're kind of picked. You're kind of picked to be the star. You're gonna play, like, if you're a hockey player, you're gonna play hockey every day. You're gonna train.
Yep.
And it's that mentality of like, I was chosen by the country, If I'm Mother Russia and I'm gonna do everything it takes to be the champion, I'll bring glory home to Russia, and that's fine. And again, I'm not putting anybody down. I think Russian culture is fucking. It's very historic, very cool. But here's the thing, I don't believe in any country or any. It doesn't even have to do with country. I just don't believe in any human that has a kid or just has a kid around you and says, "Hey, you got to do this. You got to do that." No one should be forced to do what you should be able to choose and pick your path. And that's not trying to get an old can of worms, but you really should. And I just think, how can you not think, like, I think it's so funny when people are shocked, oh, Russia with had steroids or had doping or they're part of a scandal. Well, of course they fucking are. I mean, who fucking has like a 4-year-old they pick? You're going to go fucking ice skate every fucking day and like mode it. I get training. I get you have to do it to become the best. You have to put in the work. I mean, I played basketball every fucking day. There's nothing wrong with being an athlete, but it's like, why are we shocked? Why are we shocked there was doping? I'm not. I mean, I was just shocked to hear. It's like, I guess at that time, maybe it was the hottest sports thing that it came out. Anytime something comes out, it's the biggest talk about thing. But it's like, wow, Russia cheated in the Olympics. Am I shocked? Like, no. That's what they do. Like, that's what they fucking do. And it's just, I mean, it's just, but it also is something else that I learned about today. We talked about Mexico today, and we talked about, we got on this whole tangent about Mexico. We're watching a show about cartel and just the Mexican government and stuff like that. And, it's just very interesting that, there's just some things that are just not shocking. And there's also like hearing that there's government officials in Mexico being paid off, hearing that there's police being paid off, hearing that there's military being paid off, smugglers, there's all these things, even probably press. It's like, it's hard to not be shocked anymore. But what's something that recently, Jim, that you heard that shocked you? And it can, it might not have to be this year. Like, is there anything that you can think of that did shock you that turned out to be true?
These days, man,
it really nothing shocks you anymore.
That's kind of the world we live in. Is that I haven't heard anything where I'm just like, that is surprising. That is like, more often than not. And granted, you would remember the vast outliers. Yes. You would remember the things that would just go, wow, that is surprising. So the fact that I am sitting here going, I have not heard anything so outlandish, so disgusting, so pervasive that I would just have that like etched in my memory. Like, that speaks to a wider, and I'm sorry I'm laughing at it, but a wider thing where it's just like, and granted, maybe it's just my perspective where I just go, people are awful.
Yeah.
Human beings are just awful.
They're evil. I mean, there's humans that are amazing and not evil, and there's humans that are evil. And so it's part of the world, and it's the battle of good versus evil that's been the fucking history of this whole planet. But it's like, the thing about it is this, I will say this. The reason I bring that up is, a recent documentary that I watched was a Jerry Sandusky documentary out of Penn State about about him, touching and raping all those kids. And I'm going to be honest with you, watching that documentary, growing up, I'm a diehard sports fan. I'm super into football. And, if you're into college football, especially as a kid, especially in the 90s, early 2000s, Penn State football. From video games, from watching on TV, Joe Paterno. I mean, the guy been around there for 40 years. He's old as shit coaching. And you watch that documentary, Al Pacino stars in it. It's on HBO Max. It's a great watch. That situation up there is completely fucked. Penn State football, everybody that was associated with all that is just fucked. I'm sorry. I say fuck everybody involved. Fuck Paterno. Fuck Sandusky. They're all guilty as shit. Like, that's disgusting. But the thing about it is, it just shocks you. You really did. I wasn't a Penn State fan. I didn't give a fuck about Paterno or Penn State, but you really did respect him. You'd watch like games and you see him and you're like, oh, there's that old ball coach. Or you hear Lee Corso talk about, oh, there's Penn State. I want to watch Penn State play. They're playing Michigan today. Oh, it's a good game. It's coached by Paterno. No, Paterno, like, he hit all that. I mean, he knew about this stuff in advance, and I almost felt like in the documentary it shows like he's playing this like dumb card, like, oh, I don't know, like, oh, did I forget? Like, no, cut it out. So that did shock me, just how fucked up that Penn State situation. It was fucked. The whole thing was fucked up. But to watch that and see how messed up that was insane. But it also just proves to you, people of power, not all of them, and not all of them are bad either, because
right.
we wouldn't be where we're at as a society if it was that way. But the people that are in power that are fucked up, they're protected. It's crazy.
Well,
and
they're
protected by people that don't even want to protect them.
Well, they have. It's all about, for lack of a better expression, where does the money go? And it may not be necessarily
Bingo.
money, but power. Like, yo, I got this guy on my staff. He's out there doing things he shouldn't be, or she is doing things that she shouldn't be, or
they turn a blind eye.
Well,
they don't. Sometimes they don't want to. That's the biggest thing. That's the thing that kills you. You might not be involved at all. You're just watching. I'm watching this documentary. No offense, I have no involvement at all. I don't know a fucking soul in Pennsylvania. I know a couple, but I'm saying I don't know. I know Miz and Berg, but it's like I don't know Paterno. I don't know anybody at Penn State. I'm not a Nittany Lion fan, but you sit there and you watch, and you're like, it's fucking disgusting that not only was it kept secret, but it's just like, it's like you just don't think that it's gonna happen. Like you really don't. But you watch it and you're like, it's because of sports. It's because that's the moneymaker. And a lot of times, I could just tell watching the documentary, he didn't want to deal with it. People don't want to get their hands dirty. Sometimes sometimes people are going to sue back. There's going to be an argument. Hey, I didn't do that. Blah, blah. They just don't want to mess with it. And that's what's fucked up with our society. There's no true backbone sometimes, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, if you think about it in the context of, like, what used to happen. What, like, if, and granted, right, wrong, and different, in most cases, it was wrong, but, if you had a situation where, say, one person saw another person doing that shit, they were probably going to get the shit kicked out of them.
Yeah.
And granted, that also came along the backbone of, like, no accountability, problems with, people of different races and stuff like that, people of different genders and people of different sexual orientations and stuff like that came along with that. But it's like that type of behavior usually got, like, quelled pretty quick. But do you want that type of behavior along with all those other things? Mm-hmm. Hell no. No, you don't want that type of approach. Which is the flip side of it. It's like,
Mm-hmm. It's also, you bring back a really good point. We are so, and this is my opinion, and there's probably some old fuck listening that's like, I don't think so. But fuck you. So technology is important, and I'm glad we have technology, and I think I'm blessed, and I'm thankful for technology. If we didn't have technology, I don't give a fuck. Life be boring. And the thing about it is this. I enjoy it. I use it every day. It's not only a thing that can help you with life, with work, with creativity, with legacy, with input, whatever. It's just the world now. And, something that I think about a lot is, and I'm glad it wasn't around. There's a lot of fucked up shit that's happened in the past. And think about, have you ever sat there and just thought, what if Facebook Live was on in the 1800s? Or in 1100s during the plague or during the Roman days. It's like the shit you would see, and you look, and I think that's why us as humans now, and I love it too, I'm not gonna lie, we love seeing history, we love seeing shit that's old, because we want to picture in our head a story. This person lived here, this person did this, somebody died here, somebody fucked here, somebody fucking won $1 million here, somebody rode a horse, and it's like it's all about a story, because the fucking world is a story. Like, hey Jim, what'd you do yesterday? Well, that's a fucking story. That's what we're doing. So I just think that it would be insane. So let me ask you this. This is a great question to ask you, Jim. And I'll tell you, I know right now what I'm going to tell you, but I want to hear your answer first. You have an opportunity. 24 hours, you're at the house. You have nothing to do. You just have your phones fully charged. You have Facebook Live pulled up, and you can watch it from any time period. And you got the hottest Facebook Liver from that time period. What time period you picking? You got DJ Ray Ray, who's he's one of the biggest Louisville Instagram persons. You got him, but you have him in any time period. What do you want to see?
It's tough.
I'll tell you, man. Maybe it'll help. I'm going prehistoric. I'm going dinosaur times. I want a guy running around. Yo, I heard around the corner there is a stegosaurus eating a banana tree, and he's about to shit everywhere. And it's like, I don't give a shit. I want to see that. I want to see the brontosaurus eat the tree. I want to see the T-Rex chase down the stegosaurus. Like, I want to see all that. Like, I'm going dinosaur all day.
Does it have to be human history?
Because it doesn't have to be human history, but it could be
because
any
you
history.
you just posited like the fact that no human was around during like dinosaur times. So
true.
I'm sitting here going, oh, Facebook Live. Let's go back to like.
Well, since we have the technology and we're getting to go back now, the one that was doing my Facebook Live was a raptor. Okay, and that's how futuristic this technology was. So what's doing yours?
I would say pre-Big Bang.
Wait, the chicken has it? Or the egg?
Yeah, I mean, that's
the egg is Facebook Live in the Big Bang.
That's the thing. It's like you gave me unrestricted,
True.
Unfettered access to the timeline.
Though. It's got to be unrestricted.
So
that's the best way.
It's kind of like, okay, cool. So for all intents and purposes, everything condensed to a small point in the universe and then expanded rapidly. So what was in existence before that point? That's the $1 million question.
That is a great question.
So if you could see beyond that point of origin, because as people seek to understand, and these are PhD physicists and all matters of people who are way smarter and more educated than myself, that would go through and try to seek to understand, well, we understand how the Big Bang actually happened, but what happened before? And that would be the new realm, the new cutting edge, the new bleeding edge of how to seek to understand creation, because there's always going to be something more. So if you can get to a point of just going like, well, what was before that? What was before that? What was before that? Because there's always a life cycle. There's always things before.
I like that. And I got a question for you that is even more juicier from that standpoint is, okay, one day. And I respect all religions, all faiths. I even respect atheists. I respect it all. You whatever you believe, that's what you believe. You got one life, believe it. But say God, or if it's not God, a spirit just says to you, literally comes to you, and you just know, and it's like, hey, this is how the fucking world was created. By the way, dinosaurs died this way, and the third thing, George Washington used to be a pedophile. You get all three of these facts, like random facts. So you're like, wait, what? And it's like, but you can't tell anybody, or you can't say anything, or like you can't like those three. That's just something like random facts of history, but you find out they're factual. Wouldn't you want to run and tell everybody? But would it drive you nuts that you, or maybe even phrase the question of, what would your choice be, to learn three facts like that, or to not know it all if you knew you couldn't say?
So your situation is like a spirit or an ethereal being comes to you and actually says these things inside of your consciousness, and you are sitting there going, "Whoa."
And you're not allowed to say, or it could even ask you, "Hey, I'll tell you these three things. You really want to know?" And you're like, "Yeah," but you can't ever tell anybody. You can't even tell Christine. You can't tell me. You can't tell anybody. It's literally stuck with you for life.
So here's the thing: if I'm hearing that in like some kind of voice, first I would get myself checked out.
True.
Like first and foremost,
True.
I'd be like, okay, George
the
Washington.
Voices are coming. Yeah, that'd be scary.
I would be like, okay, this is the first I'm hearing about George Washington being a pedophile. And granted, I'm not a historian. Nor
I don't know. I have no clue. I just was thinking of a random fact.
That's the thing. I was just like sitting here going, oh, did I not read up on my history before coming to this thing?
Benjamin Franklin was a sex addict. I will verify that stat. That man got.
Did you go back in time?
No, I just heard Ben Franklin got the booty. Kites. That's a true fact for all the men out there. I think history proves it. Kites bring in the booty.
Just don't attach your children to it or let them hold on to it. I don't know if you've seen that Reddit one where the kid goes up in there. It's just like terrifying.
But it's like, so basically, from the standpoint, like, would you be able to live with that, knowing like how the world, how those three things happen? And it's not even shit that you really think about every day. I never fucking think about George Washington. I would just think, oh, he's a creepy bastard, and then the rest of it, I would be like, oh.
So
shit.
Think about it in this context. You have nothing actionable to work on those. You don't have anything earth-shattering to tell anybody.
To prove.
Yeah, like you have no roadmap to actually.
Would it make you feel better knowing that? Knowing those two things? Like knowing those three. I know the George Washington thing was just a joke. That was some goofy. But just out of those three facts, would that benefit you, knowing that part of history? And then you could just continue living on doing.
So if you think, let's flip it, turn it around. So if an ethereal being or something beyond this plane came to you and told you the purpose of life,
mm-hmm.
and then said, "You do with it what you will."
Fuck.
So now you have religion. So you have so if you think about it in that context, people think they already have the answer, like, and they're trying to evangelize, trying to tell people, trying to do this thing because they think they have the answer. And granted, I'm not trying to speak for anybody out there who anything like that.
And if anybody takes that he is, fuck you. That's
I'm trying to be as inclusive as possible with this type of thing.
Well, yeah,
so
you're nailing it, though.
So in this kind of context, it's like you have these people who think they have the answer, but it's all predicated on faith.
Mm-hmm. It is,
and
all
so
faith, yeah.
So
it's faith-based.
What we're making the assumption in this kind of thought experiment is that this is not faith from within; it's faith from without, which is entirely religion. And it's
True.
hard to say, like, oh, a voice came from the heavens and told me this is the purpose of life. This is what I am supposed to do. I need to tell people about this. People need to hear about this. And then between point A and point wherever on the alphabet, somebody is going to figure out how to monetize it. And
see, that's what I was going to say. It you bring up a perfect point. It's all about monetization. Like, it's all about making money with it. Like, you with anything anymore. And because I was going to ask you another question, almost just ask us out loud. It would be crazy to learn something and learn, like, hey, this is the truth. This one religion is true, or all of it's bullshit, or hey, all of this is true that this happened. it's definitely interesting. You know, when you're a kid, it's a lot scarier to think about. It's a lot bigger picture. You're kind of like, man, like I'm trying to wrap my brain around this. But now, life is very simple, and life also is very, but life is very advanced. Like it's not as simple as you make it. Like it's not where you wake up and you're like, oh, it's just easy to figure out. But life is simple from the standpoint: I wake up, I put clothes on, I poop, I pee, I shower, I have sex, I eat food, I do all this. But then it's so complex of there's so many mysteries and there's so many questions and things that I can't figure out, and that's what makes life a little bit more just a fun ride, because you're like, not only is it fun and life's great, but it's kind of like, what the fuck is like there's so many mysteries. I just want to figure it out. Like I look at shit and I'm like, how the fuck is that possible?
Dude, you started to go down a road that I think is really interesting, and I think is really important for people to seek to understand. And whenever you're talking about being a kid, and you're talking about like seeking to really understand how the world works, and a lot of people, and granted, I'm really not trying to restrict folks on like, hey, this is my certain perspective on stuff, but you know, give it up to a higher power, do X, Y, and Z, you know, trust the struggle, you name whatever it is, the ideology that you subscribe to submits you to actually do, right? So you're a kid, you're sitting there going, I have no control. I have no fucking control. What am I supposed to do? And that is the most disabling thing that anybody can ever do to a kid. I'm going to come out and say that is something that is really, really damaging to the child's psyche, because it creates an external locus of control. It is basically saying, especially with those who suffer, or not suffer, but deal with anxiety, depression, that type of symptom, regardless if they're an adult, if they're an adolescent, if they're a child. They don't have any control inside of their own life, because their entire experience has been predicated on the fact that they don't have control. So whenever these kids are growing up, give it up to God, or give it up to fate, or do this, rather than thinking to themselves, I have done everything that I can to prepare for whatever I am about to encounter. No, I give it up. I give it up. They don't think about it in the internal locus of control, in thinking, what else can I do? How else can I prepare for this? How else can I be better? How can I do more good?
It's almost the concept of people very like, I see what you're saying, giving up on an idea by just saying, oh, I'll get figured out because he'll take care of it, or he'll watch over, kind of deal.
Right.
And it doesn't matter what religion. It could be any
right.
Of them.
Correct. Yes. Correct. And it's the psychological principle of just disabling somebody, essentially. Like, you aren't allowing them to think for themselves.
Here's what I want to ask you in 2021. No, this doesn't matter on any religion, Christian, Muslim, anything. How does a young person, because you are right, you're definitely right, and I think this is what was very bad, probably between it's probably been bad forever, but probably between 1600s to 1900s, really bad. How does a kid find religion, though, in a way, if he wants to? I'm not. Here's the thing, because I'm not saying I don't think if religion is I have my own faith. I believe in God. I have my own faith. I believe in religion in some aspect like that. I also believe religion can be bad too, but I'm open-minded. I think I'm probably more open-minded on a scale of I understand everyone's perspective, which I think everyone should be open-minded. But the thing I want to say is, it doesn't matter what the kid finds. I don't care if he goes and finds being Christian, Catholic, Muslim, or if he decides one day he's like, I'm an atheist. Whatever makes him happy, or whatever his belief is, that's his right. That's his right as a human being, as a person. How does a person find that, though, if they're not led to by a parent? I'm not saying it's good. I'm just saying, though, that's just a question in general. Like, how does a kid find out what he believes in with the way I feel like now when you're a parent, you want to control the fuck out of that kid as much as you might not want it to be controlled before you had a kid. Once that kid is yours and it popped out of you, or you came inside somebody and you've got that baby, it's like,
you're putting guardrails up, man.
Yeah.
You're basically saying this is the kind of trajectory I want you to go on, but if you think of it in the context of like the night sky, you have this much, and once you actually point it in a certain direction.
Should a parent just say to the kid, though, like,
I'm not a parent, man. I can't answer that.
And I see that's the same thing here. That's what I'm trying to figure out. I think I'm just talking out loud. I'm trying to figure out. So I guess the way to do it is look at the kid and just be like, figure this out. How you.
So I would, it. Whenever I've had conversations with people who have questions, people who are trying to figure things out, people who may not necessarily know the path. It's not about trying to give them an answer. It's never about giving them,
because you would be giving them your own belief in a way.
Yeah. So you need to help people think through what they're dealing with, and more often than not, this is something that's best done by somebody who's a professional therapist or somebody who does that type of thing. But if they're having issues sorting through things with trying to figure out the meaning of life and stuff like that, like the existential
which I think
things.
We've all ran into one person trying to figure it out,
and so
at some point in their life,
which is a very, very ubiquitous human experience. It's something that we all deal with. We all have these existential burning questions, these things that deal with the finity of life, watching life start, come to an end. Maybe you haven't seen both spectrums of that with the same person, which is probably a good thing. I think most of us have probably dealt with the end of a life. At least I hope that most people have not.
You.
But
I think it will change you too when you see, like, people don't realize, like, it could be your loved one and it could be the most gentle passing. Like when I saw my grandpa in his 90s, like it was more of like he's just slowly passing in sleep. He was out of it. He's on, the pain. He was just going out. You hated it because it's your grandpa. You don't want to see that. You're losing him. He's 91, but you also, it opens your eyes up about life experience and about just death in general and just life in general. Just the whole naturally. No matter if you believe in life, no matter if you believe in religion, if you believe in afterlife, if you don't, if you're an atheist, you don't give a shit. It just opens your eyes because it's wild. Like, you come in as this baby and then you die. And then also, too, it's like we look around now in 2021. Like, I'm sitting right now in your all's living room. We got TV. We got a computer. We're recording off a cell phone. We got mics. We got snacks, drinks. There's dogs. Dogs have food, water. We got it. You got it all. And it's like, and I got it in my house. We got it all these people. And, it's like, you're literally fucking born. And if no one loves you, like, it's very sad to say, I don't mean to go down this depressing thing, but it's like, if no one loves you or wants to care for you, you're fucked. Like, it's almost this thing of, that's why it's so important to be a good parent and so important to be
100%.
And it's so important to be involved in your kid's life, even if you made a mistake, even if you slipped up, you wanted some hanky-panky with that shawty down the street, and you know what? One slides through, and you know what? And that one's safe. And you know what? That shawty calls you up and says, "Hey, little Debbie down here, I ain't talking snacks. That's your daughter. You better be in that fucking daughter's life." I mean, that's the way I view it. I mean, it's like I'm just keeping it real, Jim. And it's like, it's one of these cases where You got to be in your kids' life. Like that's the one thing I want to be addressed is like I address messages, address things for people to learn, but you have to be in your kid's life because your kid, you're molding this kid for fucking life. From 18 to fucking, hopefully we all make it to 100, but from 18 to like 90, that range, you're on your fucking own. Like you might have it made. You might have had some money. Someone might have died or passed down. You might get rich. You might be smart as fuck and have a dope job. It's how you choose your path. And there's no woe is me story. There's no fucking cheat code. But it's just like, if you're a parent, just fucking raise your kid right, or at least fix the environment or do something. That's just my little soapbox tangent, because if you don't, you're not only making a shitty individual just for the future, but at the same time, you're mentally fucking that kid. And also, too, let these kids make the decision and make their announcement of what they want to say themselves. If a kid's gay, if a kid wants to believe in this, if a kid wants to think he's fucking Pikachu till he's fucking 14 years old, fuck off and let the kid do it. He might be weird as fuck, but you know what? That's your kid. You got to deal with it. Now, if it's one of these cases where he's trying to thundershock kids in the cafeteria, yeah, you might need to take him to a specialist. But at that point, I'm just stating, let your kid be who he is, but also, too, let your kid just enjoy his life, and also, too, be involved and monitor from a situation of it's serious, do it. And I'm being serious. Like Jen, like you got these kids we're at McKay's today. I swear. I swear today I'm at McKay's. I'm walking around and I hear this little fucking kid doing a tangent. He looked at his dad and he said to his dad, like, "You never give me anything." And his dad just stormed off, and you could tell it crushed his dad. And that's another thing. If any kids are listening, treat your parents with a little respect. If they're buying you shit or getting you that pack of Pokemon cards, you know, fucking show them some love and appreciation, because this kid threw a tantrum. He still got that fucking Pokemon pack. I was going to grab it if he didn't. I'll be honest, I almost fucking just like was going to trip him and grab the pack. But the thing about it is, I'm watching that kid and I'm hearing him screaming at his dad. His dad storms off. It's a big fucking scene, McKay's. And you know, his dad runs off and the kid makes some stupid comment like, I'd hit him with a psychic wave or some Pokemon comment. And I'm thinking to myself, like, man, these kids really are thinking they can pull these Pokemon moves off and do this stuff. And that's fine. I think imagination's key. But it's just like, it's where it's you draw a line on both sides. Treat your kid with respect, but also treat the parents with respect, and just be involved in each other's life. And spread positivity. That's my big tangent. So, but there is kids that are thinking Thundershock works, and I'm sorry. PSA, it don't work. None of these moves work. They don't.
A little sidebar to that is that you don't take care of your kids. You don't have a home to go to whenever you get older. Congratulations, you're getting to a second-rate nursing home.
Exactly. I mean, that's
like, I hate to put it in that kind of dark context for anybody who's like up there in age, but I mean, dude, you go to any nursing home that's not like top notch, and you're just like,
it's fucked.
Yeah.
I mean, I went to, like, there's a perfect example. It's kind of sad, but family wise, I had a great aunt, and she goes to a nursing home down in Owensboro, Kentucky. And if you've ever been to Owensboro, there's only really Moonlight Barbecue and I think the Bluegrass Hall of Fame. And we go down and take her Dollar General, give her some stuff, you know, and we showed her some love. But the place was awful. It was a nightmare. It was tragic what you see. And so, you know, that's another thing. Care about the quality of your life too. You know, like, you might not want to work hard right now. You might want to, like, just willy-nilly do whatever the fuck you want. But you know, quality of life is very important. I mean, sometimes it ain't about how big your house is, how big a truck, just as long as you're comfortable. And I think that's where my goal is when I get old, is I want that comfortable, that I want to be versatile, but I also want to be comfortable. Last question I want to ask you, Jim. I have a question for you before we wrap up. So, if you could solve something using technology, what would you solve?
Answering that would be exposing a business plan, man. Like,
well, I understand that. Okay.
Because
I don't want you to do that.
Well, no, because here's the thing. Like, a lot of the things that I think about solving with, it goes back to what I said earlier. If somebody's already done it, I'm going to buy it.
Mm-hmm. True.
So there are things that I think about on a pretty consistent basis that if I did not see a solution for it, that I would go, that's viable. So you take, for example, something that's out there right now, which is digital workplace transformation.
Mm-hmm.
So people are looking at, like, well, how do we go back to the office? And granted, we're going to have to, like, table this stuff for, like, episode 2 whenever we sit down.
That's what I'm saying. Everybody that's been on this show is gonna probably make a comeback because there's just more and more to talk about. So much content.
So these organizations that actually build these softwares and hardware, they look at how things are being utilized in the office, how many people are in a certain area, yada yada yada. But what about, like, situations with, like, active shooters? That's pretty prevalent here.
Wow.
Yeah. So somebody has already thought about that. But it requires more hardware. It requires more investment. Like, and whenever I think about things, my first thought is, how do you remove the barrier of entry for those systems being ubiquitous? And then it starts getting really dystopian and 1984-y and just all types of stuff. So,
wow.
Whenever I think about problems to solve, it's problems to solve while maintaining privacy of the individual citizen.
Gotcha.
So that's super complex.
I think mine would be, and again, it would be so complex and trying to figure it out. It'd be preventing animal extinction. I would really like to see that because
are you Bill Gates? Do you have enough money to do that?
Exactly.
Because that's fucking huge amounts of money.
Oh, it's so much money. It's so much.
I mean, you would have to, like, go and make sure that, like, people of the largest energy organizations just no longer. Oh, funny story. You would be making sure their extinction happened. So
yeah,
along with
what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. It's such a. It just you wish with technology it could be such an easy fix. And that's where something we could get onto a whole like you said, a whole episode 2, a whole another tangent of, it's wild, the stuff that. It's just wild to think about how the world works. I mean, just the way technology does operate and interface, and just how it wasn't really around, and it's a fun time. I mean, it's a fun time to be alive, and it's a fun time to see what's happening.
Well, and here's the thing. I will leave your listeners with this. So if you find technology interesting, if you like to play around with the toys, understand this very clearly. If you are in that position and that's what you like, understand that you are very stagnated in your role if you decide to go that way as a profession. You will be very limited in your income, and you will be very sequestered in how you can influence an organization. If you are going to be, and I think your phone freaked out, man.
Oh, it might have freaked out because of memory storage.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So keep going.
Anyway,
keep going.
So the live stream just died. So
we've gone for quite a while. I mean, this is one of the longest episodes. This is the longest episode of Vibing with Sleezy, the podcast. So.
Oh well, I am so sorry.
No, it's all good. We will. What I've done in other videos, I've had the video cut out twice, and I have edited in the audio part with the video. Right. So
cool.
We'll make it work. I'll always make it work over here.
So I do want to say that. So if you are a person who likes working with people and likes solving problems, and you can think analytically and mathematically, and that's how your brain kind of works, and you can master technology, you can really exercise your capabilities and make change capable within organizations. if you want to go down those roads of flexing that technology muscle, there are plenty of resources out there. Udemy, you can look at Code Academy, you can look at all these different things out there for certifications to actually make yourself be better. And if you guys want me to come on later on and talk through some of those, how to get into the industry more specifically, and give you all some more resources, I'm more than happy to do that.
We can do that for sure.
Because one of my big things is helping early career technology professionals not just get into the industry, but also level up within the industry. I do a lot of mentoring. I help people. That's one of the greatest things that I actually enjoy. I taught guitar in high school and college, and I found enriching the lives of those individuals trying to be better to be very, very helpful for me as a human. So I'm more than happy to do that as well and bring that kind of expertise here. So that way, if anybody, wants to know how that works, I'm more than happy to do that.
Yeah, and so I want to thank Jim for being on this episode. It has been fantastic. Again, this was episode 10. This is a big episode. The video did cut off, but we have good news. So the YouTube video solution has been fixed. It's going to take some time with converting, uploading. I got to get another hard drive, but I will have a YouTube series as well with all the episodes I've recorded since episode 1. I've not left out an episode, and to make it to 10 and be over a month, it's been fantastic. Over 500 downloads. This show is about learning. This show's about new content. This show's about making you think, and I love all the support. I love all the love. And if you have any feedback or questions, reach out to me. Reach out to Jim's fiance. I can get you in touch with Jim if need be. But the main thing is keep downloading, keep streaming. And I got some great episodes coming up. And I want to thank everybody. And from Hendersonville, Tennessee, we are out. Peace.